fight's not over until only one of us is left standing.
Hey yo, what up? So today we'll be diving into Dragon Ball Z Kakarot Season Pass 2, the review so far. And the reason why we say so far is because a third DLC just dropped and was announced, but hasn't been released yet. So we're going to take a look at the Bardock DLC, and we're going to take a look at the 23rd World Tournament DLC to see if the Season Pass is actually worth it. Should we get the Season Pass, or should we buy them as individual DLCs only for our liking? So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into it. We all know the story of Bardock. Bardock and his squad is sent to a planet to retrieve an ability to predict the future for Frieza. And unknowingly and unwillingly, Bardock actually ends up receiving it instead of Frieza, because this gentleman here would like for Bardock to be able to see his doom just like they had to see and accept their doom by the Saiyans coming to their planet. But one thing I can say about this DLC is that the retelling of the Bardock story is actually pretty good, but that's the Kakarot game in general. Mostly all the DLCs and the original story is really good, especially with the cutscenes. Another thing they did pretty well was exploring, and you guys know how it is. If you check my previous content, I'm very big on exploring any new area in which we have in a Kakarot game. I love that about it. Now, this area was very beautiful. It was different to get a different atmosphere, a different planet, and this is the first time we've actually been on planet Vegeta, at least to the point of exploring, right? So as you look around, it's massive. It has a lot that you can go and explore and look around and do, and this is the main hub, right? This is where they're sending off people to different planets, and you get to go in and interact with certain Saiyans and this, that, and the other, but it's just very bland. It's dull. That's kind of it. So I even venture off apart from that area to check out the land and see other Saiyans and what they're doing. And I come over here and I see a few standing around, but I see one doing push-ups. It's interesting, but I expected to see them being a little bit more aggressive, like fighting or arguing and just being nasty and hateful. But I didn't get that, and I think that was something that we were shortchanged on, because that's the picture that we got from the Z series, right? So as I began to explore more, I noticed that there is a pipeline down underneath the water. I go in this pipeline because I enjoy to explore, right? I know that there's something in there waiting for me, an item or something, and it's empty. There's absolutely nothing here. Very disappointing. So as I go around, I encounter Cybermen. These are Planet Vegeta's henchmen. I think Saiyans would have been a way better job, but nonetheless, they weren't weaklings. They put up a decent challenge, so I think that was cool. But I think fighting against other Saiyans would have been way better than this. As I continued exploring, I did find this spacecraft retrieving space pods. I thought that was a nice little, hint or pinch of salt they added to the DLC and the planet. That was pretty dope. And of course, exploring deals with sub-stories, right? And this one was one that I chose that wasn't too bad. It was Tor and Bardock versus these 5 knucklehead, obnoxious Saiyans. And I think that the Saiyans should have been used instead of Cybermen, right? Because they show us in this side story that we actually can fight them separately. But nonetheless, it was a pretty quick fight. They weren't really too hard. They end up defeating them and beating them. But the one that stood out to me the most was this sub-story right here, where you're actually summoned by the Ginyu Force. So it's 5 of them and it's 5 of you, and they want to challenge you guys to put their skills to the test. At the end, they consider you rivals because you guys are pretty strong. They just want you guys to get stronger so they can continue to grow their abilities as well. Nothing great, but it was a little bit of a change up. So the next thing I want to speak about is combat. And Bardock fights like a boss straight out the gate. If there's anybody that lives up to their reputation apart from Goku, it's Bardock. It's like he literally lived for fighting. Then you feel it in every punch, every kick, every move, step that he takes, man. It was just on point. You never got tired of fighting with this guy. But I love the fact they've added this grab mechanic for the enemies, because this is something that is literally pulled directly out of the Bardock movie and implemented into the game. And it is executed very well, where they restrain you and you cannot move until they let you go. I absolutely love that about that. I see you, Bandai Namco. Another thing they had in here that caught me off guard were the visions. I knew that Bardock had them, but I didn't really know how they were going to implement it into the story. But the way that they did it was absolutely amazing, man. It was just on point. Their timing and when they selected to do them, all of that stuff, man, was just accurate. And I love the fact that this was an addition that they chose to put in here at the moments that they did. And probably the most surprising thing of all in the Bardock DLC had to be Kid Vegeta. I didn't really care about Kid Vegeta being in here. It wasn't a selling point for me because I'm not really a Bardock fan, so I kind of stayed away from the DLC for a bit. But when I chose to buy it and I played as Kid Vegeta, man, it was crazy. Not only fighting with him, but also seeing Nappa and his, old school toupee really set the scene for me. So fighting with Vegeta against the Cybermen was just the beginning stage. Now you get to get a little bit more of a background history of the beef between Vegeta and Kui, and you got something to prove right as a kid going up against this knucklehead. So fighting against Kui was hype, man. I absolutely loved it. It was nothing boring about it, nothing bad about it. Vegeta was another one who was a true soldier that fought like a boss straight out the gate. Definitely worth it. Only downside about it was that the Vegeta DLC, or at least a part of Bardock's DLC that included Vegeta, was the fact that it was very, very short. It didn't really have much to offer as far as content, and that was where it kind of fell short for me. But I will give them this. They did allow you to play as Prince Vegeta on a planet or two and fight against raid battle bosses and things of that sort. But apart from that, man, the planets are very dead. They're just deserts. And honestly, it's not even worth speaking about. There is nothing there to explore or to really do at all. And trust me, I looked for something that was entertaining. It just wasn't anything there. But if you are a Bardock fan, I say buy the DLC. If you are a Kakarot fan looking to extend your experience, I say buy the DLC. If you're not a Bardock fan, I can say you can pass on this one. It doesn't really offer anything as a must-have for your gaming experience. Now on to arguably the best DLC of them all, DLC 5, the 23rd World Tournament. Now to shorten up this review because there was so much that I had to cover, I'm going to break it down into 4 categories. 1 is story, 2 is ground mechanics, 3 is TN, and 4 is exploring. So going into the story, I was actually surprised to find out that you could actually play as Kid Goku versus Demon King Piccolo, not just in cutscenes that you watch, but also as a playable character. I think that was something that surprised many. Now, after you defeat Demon King Piccolo, you're greeted with part of the gang here. Everyone's waiting for Goku and others to show up so they can participate in this tournament, which I'm assuming everyone knew they were going to be there. Goku arrives, no one recognizes him, so he removes the bandages from his head to reveal himself, and the other guys show up shortly after. Once everyone gets reacquainted, they announce that the tournament is about to begin, so everyone gets ready to make their move inside. As the preliminaries are underway, the old turtle gang grabs their old gi, has it altered to fit their new sizes, and then they introduce other characters, such as Piccolo, which is his first time on the scene, and also a mysterious or anonymous fighter who has grown up, known as Chi-Chi, which we all know is Goku's future wife. Now, the first time you get to play as Tien as a playable character is against Mercenary Tao, but this is in a flashback. So the reason why he's having a flashback is because Chaozu was actually knocked out by Mercenary Tao during the preliminaries, so Tien is kind of upset about that and he's having a flashback. So this is the first time you play against or with Tien against Mercenary Tao. And the thing that I appreciated about this battle the most was that they allowed you to warm up with Tien instead of just getting in the tournament and just kind of, freeballing from there. So this was a nice warm-up session that I really appreciated. It was a nice challenge. Now, as the story continues, the tournament has begun, and the first battle is Tien versus Mercenary Tao. And this is your first time stepping foot on a tournament stage in which they have created. And I have to say, man, it was lovely. Everything about it was very pleasurable. Like, the tournament size was a lot bigger than what I expected. More than enough room to be able to move around, to dodge, and really enjoy yourself, man. It really did a good job as far as setting the atmosphere and making you feel like you were really in a tournament itself. But Tien is too strong. He simply overpowers Mercenary Tao, knocks him out of the tournament as the clear victor. So next up we have Goku versus Chi-Chi, which was an interesting fight because we couldn't play this actual battle. We could only watch it during cutscenes. And Chi-Chi is pissed. She's upset because Goku doesn't know who he is or what he promised to her, which was marriage when they got older. So she makes him a promise. If you can defeat me, then I'll tell you my name. And Goku being Goku, we know what he does. Being the gentleman that he is, he throws a super fast Kai wave, knocks her out of the tournament, and guess what? She has to tell Goku her name. So after telling Goku her name, Goku remembers. They speak about the promise in which he made, and Chi-Chi's happy because Goku accepts. Now, one thing that I am upset about in this DLC was this right here. Piccolo versus Krillin. This is a perfect opportunity for us to play as Krillin against Piccolo. We didn't get that chance. Same thing with Yamcha versus Hero. Yamcha could have became a playable character. We didn't get that chance. It was all used through cutscenes. So next round that we actually get to participate in is Goku versus Tien. And this is kind of like a long-awaited battle as well. This is a rematch from, I believe, the 22nd World Tournament where Tien actually won. And I have to say, man, this was actually really interesting. But the part that really stood out to me the most was the fact that it felt like Goku was holding back. I didn't really know why. I thought it was just because it was, pre-Z Goku. They got to make him slower to not really give him that full strength effect of how strong he actually becomes in Dragon Ball Z, right? But no, what ends up actually happening is the simple fact that Goku has on weighted clothing. And once he removes that clothing, you get to use Goku as his normal speed, his normal power, and everything, man. And that was something I really appreciated them doing. Just kind of added more life to the tournament and to the story, and kind of bringing it to life more for me. But Goku isn't the only one with a power-up. This is the first time we get to see Tien's multi-form technique. It was actually dope to fight against Tien in the tournament, man. I thought that he was really an interesting and good character. But the multi-form technique, this isn't the first time that we've actually fought against it, because if you have DLC 1 and 2, Beerus used this exact same technique when you're fighting against him. And his is definitely more challenging, of course, because he's Beerus. But nonetheless, man, it was an interesting fight. But as we know, Goku finds a weakness in Tien's multi-form technique, which leads him to defeat all 4 Tiens and actually become the victor, moving on to the finals where he faces off against Piccolo. And this battle specifically wasn't anything special. It was kind of just like a standard, fight like you did with Tien, the Mercenary Tao, and so on. But the part that got me about Piccolo was the simple fact that he kept progressing to different stages that were a bit more challenging. Like Goku bested him in the standard fight of what we see here, but then Piccolo grows to a giant and Goku has to conquer him there. When being a giant doesn't work, what does Goku do? Or what does Piccolo do? He reverts back to his regular size, and then he just destroys the entire arena, hoping to destroy Goku along with it. But Goku stands firm, and they hash it out one more time for the final battle. And this is what I was speaking about Piccolo's progression, right? From just a standard fight to him getting bigger and larger, going back down in size, and having another standard fight, but with more boss-like abilities. That was something I did find interesting that I like they put in there about him. Now this right here was one of my best cutscenes from the story mode. This is when Goku literally goes to work on Piccolo. But I'm going to take this time to speak about the story overall as I wrap it up, get into my next point, which is going to be ground mechanics. So the story was really good. The cutscenes, the graphics, everything was dope. The only bad problem about it was extremely short. That was the downside to the story. If they would have put Yamcha in there as a playable character to fight against Hero, if they would have put Krillin in there as a playable character to fight against Piccolo, I think it would have added a little bit more depth to the game rather than just giving us Tien fighting against Mercenary Tao. And, we didn't even get to play as Tien fighting against Goku, which, of course they're going to give us Goku because it's his story. But you guys get and understand what I'm saying. That was the only part that was really bad, was that the story was extremely short, but it was really good though. I can't thumbs up him for that. Now let's speak about the ground mechanics. The DLC alone is worth it just for that new feature all in itself. There's pros and there's cons about that, and I'm gonna go ahead and dive into them. One of the things that I liked about the ground mechanics was the ability to jump. You no longer had to time it or just kind of hold down a trigger and go up and down to get away and make evasive maneuvers. You could simply just jump out of the way. That may seem like it's something that's really God, but once you start to use it, you'll see exactly what I mean. You get to jump in the sky, do Kai attacks or do physical attacks. It doesn't really matter. You just get to jump out the way, and that's something that was made really easy. The second thing I like about the ground mechanics was the ability to knock them in the air and continue combos. I can't tell you how many times I would start punching and I would just do a kick or whatever move they would use to knock them in the air and continue my combo there. That is truly a greatly appreciated addition and underrated feature. And lastly, the thing that I liked about it the most was just the overall feel. The characters felt smooth, they felt buttery, they felt like they were gliding. It was just a well-executed feature in which they put into the game that I definitely can say it was worth the wait. And two other things before I forget. Whenever you were low on health and you were close to the edge, that triangle came above your head to let you know that you were in danger. I appreciate that. Not that we really needed it, but I thought it was a nice little addition. And the other thing that was really dope was the knockout, right? You were allowed 2 knockouts per round before it was completely over. I like the fact that they implemented that instead of using like senzu beans. And you probably could use health items, I'm not really sure, because I didn't. I just, relied on a knockout method, and that kind of, got me through. But that was really dope, man. That really made you feel like you were truly in the tournament. Now on to the negative, and this is the only negative thing I really have about the ground mechanics, was the simple fact that even when you weren't in or on the world tournament stage and you were out in the open, like when Tien fights, or when Goku was doing free roam or whatever it may be, you still had these red lines that would show you the perimeter of where you could not pass. And sometimes when you fight in like raid battles or there's multiple enemies on one stage, it gets crowded and you get caught in the corner, you get hit with like triple beams and rockets and things of that sort. That was something that was very, very annoying. So the next time around, I hope they fix this in the upcoming DLC, that if we're on the ground, we have that flying ability, which means that we have more space to actually perform, our combat battles and our moves and things of that sort. And we can also look away or lock off of a target and actually escape the battle. That was something else that I could not do as well. Now on to our new playable character, Tien. And I'm going to be straight front with it. It wasn't really anything special. And the reason being because of that is that we didn't get to use the multi-form technique that Tien created. And we also had no access to him outside of story. So once you got done with this fight right here, you could not use Tien beyond that. You couldn't use him in post-game. You couldn't use him in free roam. That was basically it. So if you wanted to play with Tien again, you had to go back into the story mode to replay the missions. And that was something that I thought was a bogus deal, and how they shortchanged us on Tien. But nonetheless, man, I enjoyed playing with Tien because he's one of my favorite Z fighters, and I absolutely love using the tri-beam attack. That's my favorite move that he possessed. So all in all, man, it's something new, and I can accept it for that. Now on to my most favorite part of Kakarot, exploring. I love the fact that we got to explore in this gi that Goku is currently wearing, because it's actually dope. It's just sad that you're really limited and restricted to this area and you can't really go anywhere, but they at least give you some kind of, freedom with this outfit rather than him just wearing it in cutscenes and then taking it away from you. Now once you progress a little bit further, they open up the world to you, right? So now I get to go on foot and I get to do a little bit more exploring just to see and get a feel for the game a little bit better. And I mean, it feels wonderful. It feels smooth. The game is beautiful. Goku's gi pops, like his hair is slightly different and his body's thinner. You can tell the difference. Even the running on here isn't as fast. So I finally gained access to Nimbus and I go into the sky just to get a view of the island to see just how gorgeous and beautiful it is. Ever since the PS5 upgrade, man, this game has been looking phenomenal, and I enjoy free roam even more. Now, there isn't anything significantly different in free roam than it is in the regular story or gameplay of Kakarot, but there was something that I found that was actually fun that I really didn't expect to be. So what I would simply do is I would get on Nimbus, go all the way to the ground, and just thrust all the way forward and collect orbs. Now, collecting orbs has always been boring, but this way, man, I don't know what it is. It's just hype. It's like riding a boogie board or a surfboard on the land. It's really exciting. I found myself getting lost about 5 to 10 minutes just collecting orbs on the entire island. After you complete the main story, you and Chi-Chi set up your new home, and in the midst of this, you're attacked by bandits, and that's basically what you do a lot of, is basically fight bandits, whether in just regular mode or in a raid fighting style type of mode. But nonetheless, this is a large consumption of it. Once you defeat the bandits, a police officer runs up to you, and in short, what he basically says is, if you are willing to defeat these bandits, which is causing havoc all over, their area, then they'll give you great rewards. Some of these rewards are just rare items or whatever it is, but to be honest about it, man, it's not really that interesting. Neither is it worth it, because you can't take anything into the main story. One thing that I can say posed a challenge and was actually interesting after you completed the main story were the training grounds. You got to fight all the main characters in your main battles in the story mode, once again in a higher difficulty. I can say that this actually was pretty good, because in the story mode they weren't really hard, but here, man, you really get challenged, and I did like that. Now, once you gain access to the world map, you see it's not really many locations you can visit. You have a couple of boss battles, and you have a couple of side stories or sub stories, and that's kind of it, right? So they can do a lot more with what they offer us as far as post-game content, and it's not heavy things, it's simple things, right? Like, you got this world that is massively open and beautiful, and you get to go out here, you get to explore, you get to find people that you train with, that you fought against, and this, that, and the other. Like, I'm approaching Yamcha. Allow me to interact with Yamcha. I'm sure he's out here training. Let me train with him. I find Tien not too close from Goku's house. He's in the wilderness or in the forest training with Chaozu. Let me interact with them and do a level match where whatever level I'm at, allow them to max that level as well, so that it's challenging. So as I conclude, even with the areas that they shortchanged us, the DLC is still well worth it, right? It's only $13 US, and I think that that's more than worth what this DLC had to offer. Now, as far as the season pass, it's kind of hard to recommend that because we're getting DLCs that we're not asking for. That's where the challenge really comes from. Now, if you don't have any season pass 2 DLCs, I definitely say buy the season pass 2. The content will definitely keep you occupied, especially if you are a completionist. But let's say you bought the 5th DLC but skipped over the 4th Bardock DLC, then you can probably just outright buy the 6th DLC, which is going to be out shortly. So give this video a thumbs up. It'll be greatly appreciated. Comment down below if you got anything you think that I missed that you want to discuss, or something I should have added in, or whatever it may be. And consider subscribing to the